let's talk wood carving hones. So today I am going to kind of give you the progression of what hone I started with first, my second hone, third hone, which is over here fixed to the bench, and why I've changed them. These are just flat hones, manual, not power honing, so just a manual hone for like a straight knife or something like that. Let's get into it. So my first strop is a piece of 1/2 inch, roughly, by 3 5/8. That's incidental, with a piece of wood with a piece of leather glued to it. It's one I made. I made it because I saw similar things to this for sale online. To use this, what I did is I would simply clamp it to the bench like that, and then hone like this off the end of the table. It always worked well on one side, and on the other side the table oftentimes got in the way. I didn't like having my hand so close to the table. It's nice to be able to just wrap your hand around the knife and you never drop it. Not to mention, oftentimes when you're hanging off the edge of the table, depending on what is going on the table, sometimes I have a friend over and we got too much stuff on the table. I found this annoying and I didn't like the flexing. And the closer you get it to the edge, the more it flexes. And if you had to clamp it over here, then you have less support from the table and more flex. So, not a fan of that option. I've moved on from that. Originally I started out using just some white generic rouge. It gets the job done, but again, not my favorite honing compound. This is my second generation of leather strop. It's 3 3/4 wide, and some of these sizes, they're more incidental than they are intentional. So I go digging through my scrap piles looking for something that'll work. Height 2 3/8. The way I secure this, so you'll see these two holes in the side here. I don't know the exact size. It actually doesn't matter. If you buy these clamps, you'll need to drill the appropriate size for the clamps that you buy. So this is a fence clamp typically used on like a table saw for a sacrifice fence. So if part of the saw blade is going to be in the fence, you don't want to use the one that comes with the saw. You want to use a scrap piece of wood. You drill same size hole in your block of wood. That fits in there just like this. And most of these have a great deal of adjustment. So that thing there will go in or out, as well as this. I bought this on Amazon. You can find all kinds of versions on there. They'll tell you what the range of motion they have. I have grown to like this brand called Milescraft. I like this bench clamp they sell. They have one on Amazon. It's called the 409 fence clamp by Milescraft. It's $11.31 for 2. So to clamp this on there, I think I'll have to run that down a little bit. And it takes 2 of them. But truth be told, one will get the job done. It just won't move at all if you use 2. And with this, you can hone on both sides of the clamp, your hand right over top of the table. You can do a draw knife. Plenty of clearance down here for the handles to hang down if they need to. There's no flexing. Your hands don't run into the table. It worked great. I just made a mistake in the fabrication. I used a thick glue, like a rubbery type glue, and there's little pockets, air pockets, and you can feel those as your tool rides over it. And you know, I don't want to roll my edge at all, so I decided to make a new one. I essentially made the exact same thing, only with this one, I stuck leather on both sides, and the reason I did that is because I can experiment with different types of stropping compounds. For instance, I've been testing Tormek, the compound they use on their grinder, their wet grinder, and this is Veritas honing compound. This is made from chromium and aluminum oxide. So far, this is my favorite. You don't need two sides, but maybe you want to use two different coarseness or grits of honing compound, and having two sides will give you that versatility. So it's not much extra trouble to glue a piece of leather on both sides. This is the one I use now. So there's no real advantage of that one, of one of these over the other as far as size. Well, you know, this one, you know, the size is such that, you know, I get most of my my draw knife blade all in one swath, versus, you know, this is a little narrower. Maybe there's an instance where this would be more friendly. You know, you'll have to weigh that out and figure out what works best for you and the tools that you have. All right, so I'm going to get into how I go about making it. It's really simple. Okay, to make your leather strop, you got to start out with a piece of wood. This is not necessarily the size of piece of wood that I would use. It's just a random chunk of wood in my shop that I can illustrate what it is I need to illustrate. Then you need a piece of leather. I bought a roll of leather for like $15, $20, I think it was like 15, from a flea market. If you can find it in that situation, you can make all kinds of strops for you and all your buddies. Take some glue, put enough glue on your piece of wood, take your leather, slop it on there. Oversized piece of leather, all right? Before you put the glue on, forgot this step, you want to run both sides of that wood. The actual sides don't matter that much, as long as it's not rough and rough. You want them fairly smooth. You want to run this side and the opposite side. The opposite side so it'll clamp flat, or in the event that you're going to put a piece of leather on both sides so that's flat, run it across a joiner. A planer with a small piece of wood will probably make it flat, although you can get some rock within a planer. A joiner will do flattening better. So glue it, put your leather on there, take another piece of thick wood, doesn't have to be any particular species, just thick, and run it through a joiner on one side, the side that you're going to put on top. That way it is also flat, and it should be, if not the same size, preferably a touch bigger. 2 clamps, when you have nice thick pieces of wood, should be all you need, assuming they are both flat. You know, get a little bit in from the end. A little bit in from the end. Centered this way. And all you do is press it down. You don't have to squeeze the life out of it. We don't want to starve the joint of glue. We just want to hold that together. Make sure it is overhanging on all sides, and that your leather is also overhanging. Let it dry for a day. Oh, I use Type Bond 3. This is waterproof. Waterproof interior exterior glue. Sometimes you might want to use a compound that has some moisture in it. If you use a waterproof glue, you have nothing to worry about. Let it dry overnight. Take your clamps off. Once you've taken your clamps off, you can use a utility knife and score this. This is the type of utility knife that we want to use. One, if your block isn't too high, you can just run that down next to the block. If it is high, you can actually flex the blade to the block on the side and still get a vertical cut, which is ideal. Not 100% necessary. If you have a regular utility knife, a slight angled cut is not that big of a deal. I prefer it to be in line with my block. That's a minor thing. If you want to use a different blade, do what you will. To drill the holes, just use a drill press. Make sure your drill press is drilling straight up and down. Square to the table. Doesn't matter if it's plumb, it has to be square to the table in both directions. And if it's off a hair, it's not the end of the world, it still works. And if you drill it through both sides, then you can clamp from either side. All right, thanks for joining me. I hope to see you next time. If you like the video, please like, please subscribe, and hey, share it too. Have a good one.